I got here later normally than I would have been here to prep, but so the topic for today was called Rethink Your Drink. So I'm it's very appropriate. In fact, I poured myself a cup of coffee because I'm going to talk about that intentionally in what I'll be sharing today. So one thing that I'll just share briefly is it's common knowledge, right? We all know, kids know, and are taught early on that we need to drink just to survive, right? We need to replenish the fluids that our body uses just to keep us going, okay? And we can't absorb it through the air, right? We don't have roots in the ground like a plant, so we actually have to ingest it, right? Just like our energy comes from our food, we have to get our hydration from drinking things. So most of us probably have some favorite drinks that we have every day, and they probably have changed over the years. Think about the things you had when you were 7, for example. What was your staple go-to drink? Anyone? Can you share what do you think?
I don't remember that far back.
Well, think about it. A drink that you don't drink anymore that you associate with being younger. So a Shasta, so soda.
Oh, the Kool-Aid packets. So you got like a cup of sugar.
Kool-Aid, that was my go-tos. I remember that. Making my own Kool-Aid.
The Sunny D.
Sunny D.
I think I like Fresco when I was younger.
Fresca.
I don't think they make that anymore, but maybe it's called that.
Fago.
I remember, no, not that. Is that like a generic soda?
Maybe.
Or is that?
I don't know.
I usually
Like,
see it once in a
I
while.
used to get the orange Fago or Crush or what's the other one?
Well, Shasta was kind of a discount one, so
Yeah.
for some reason I'm thinking they were kind of in the same.
Fago sounds familiar.
I used to get it from the gas station.
I guess Kool-Aid probably also.
Yeah, Kool-Aid. I would say younger kids today probably have some form of, I don't know, we'll say an energy drink, like a Monster or a Rockstar. There's probably other ones I don't.
Red Bull.
Red Bull, right?
C4.
There's probably. Wait, what is this one here? Because I'm not as familiar.
C4.
C4, okay. Oh yeah, like a performance drink that might have energy in the name, or it's kind of a what would you describe it as? It's like a mixture between. It's not soda necessarily. It's
Well, I have kidney problems, so I have to do, and I have stomach ulcers and gastritis.
Mhm.
So I have to do something that's low in sodium,
okay.
low in sugars, and isn't too acidic. So I have to be really particular about this.
So because I saw the word performance on there, a lot of times Gatorade and things like that are also kind of put in, or sports drinks. Sports drinks, energy drinks.
I think our economics had when you were younger, something too. Kool-Aid, we weren't rich. Kool-Aid was, you could just get by that and you didn't have to spend a whole lot of money on it.
So I can relate to that.
And you
I
could make a big thing of that.
Right.
Do you have any food restrictions?
So water is a very common one because everything that we just talked about shared is essentially water with something added to it to make it not the same tasting as water. So it could be colors.
Well, I'm sorry,
Flavors.
but water is tasting something. There's something wrong with that water. Water has no taste.
Right. Well, I live in the city of Virginia, and I filter my water because I don't care for the way it tastes as it comes out of tap, and that's just the reality of your municipal water. Now, obviously, you can buy bottled water. You can buy it bottled and flavored. You can buy or filter your water or buy it bottled, and then you can add things to it like a powder and mix.
Trust the slavery. So when you look at what legal slavery is like,
that.
yeah, I'm trusting slavery.
Sure.
They get some of them have that aspartame. I'm like, I want to avoid aspartame as much as possible.
Right.
It's not good for your brain.
And so
I've heard.
what I want you to do is just be thinking about what are your current then. So I asked you about your earlier when you were younger drinks. What your go-to drinks when you were younger. What would you say would you be your current go-to drinks now? Would they be the ones you have in front of you? Would it be coffee? Would it so
You know, bottled water with those flavor packets.
mhm.
So that way, Gatorade, that cucumber lime, that one's.
Okay. And is this, may I ask, is it just is water that's flavored or water that has like
It's just got purified waters.
okay. So it doesn't have flavor, and it also doesn't, it's got a name brand on it, so it even says the word hydration, right? Which is probably trying to tell you, have this, have
I
this.
brought back some of the pop though. I was so good, I avoided it for quite a while and all of a sudden.
Right. Now, I mentioned that mine was Kool-Aid, but one thing I didn't notice it, so we're talking about drinks.
Yeah,
So
I was, yeah.
You happen to have a drink with you, and it looks like it's just bottled water, right?
Mhm.
Do you have a drink? If I were to say, what was your go-to drink when you were young? So pick a time, 7, 10, 12, whatever. Was it still water? Okay, and still water today. The one thing that I haven't heard anyone say yet is milk or some variation of milk. Is there
Oh,
anyone in
yeah.
here that does have milk as a staple in their diet?
I suppose yeah, water, milk,
Water, milk?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a big mouth figure, I drank it, but it wasn't a lot big. You put it in your cereal.
Yeah. And I am not a milk drinker. When I was young, yes, I would have milk with a meal, and that was kind of a thing we would just do. Everybody would have milk, right? And then as I grew older, I didn't care so much for milk in a glass, and I'd have the milk in the cereal or the oatmeal, or I guess
Have
around
you
our
ever
whole.
tried goat milk? Just straight goat milk?
You say goat or oat?
Goat,
Goat. I've never had goat milk before.
just one drink.
No, I've
Neither
never
have
tried it.
I, one drink.
Well, when I heard the
Hyperallergenic, so.
yeah, I've heard. I mean, to be honest, there's other milks that people have in different countries that I've never had before that are staples for them. Right? There could be goat milk. I think some people they have camel milk, depending on, obviously not so much in the United States, but.
I have was that, if you're allergic to milk, goat milk would be the go-to.
Mm-hmm. And for our milk here, the standard is cow's milk, but there's some people that can't have dairy at all, so they have to have some form of modified cow's milk that takes out the lactose, because that's in general what people can't have if they're having a food reaction or a drink reaction in this case with milk, or you can have like a milk like drink. So can you think of some of those that it's like milk but it isn't made from cow's milk?
Almond milk.
Almond milk.
Almond milk. I said oat milk. This is what I thought you might have said instead of goat.
Soy
So
milk.
yeah, soy. There's
Milk.
rice milk.
Milk.
Silk is probably one of those. I don't know if silk is only almond or
It's soy milk.
it's soy.
I'm
Silk
allergic to
is soy.
soy, so.
Okay. Yeah. I know I've had it. So anyways, I'm saying all these because I just want you to be in that mindset of thinking of the drinks that are your go-tos, and maybe some that somebody else in your house is a go-to, but it's not yours, or friends or relatives. And I'd like you to think them in terms of health. So I'm not really telling you yet what I feel about where to rank those drinks, but be thinking about them in terms of, if I can find my little prop here. You're getting squished every time I move.
I find it rather annoying when we get cranberry juice and it's so full of sugar. But, I mean, when I want cranberry juice, I want cranberry juice. I don't want
Yeah.
sugar cranberry juice.
So I oftentimes use this visual with kids because I want them to be thinking about taking what they know is a very common thing. They know stoplights. You got your green go, your yellow slow, and then usually we say red is stop, but in this case I'll say it's whoa. So it's go, slow, and whoa, and you kind of imagine what that means. Apply it to drinks, and as you're thinking about how good they are for you or not good for you. So green drinks are going to be the drinks that are the best for our bodies, and it's typically described if it's something is in the go category. You can have as much as you want, as often as you want. That's a go drink, okay? Slow would be a drink that has something about it where, yeah, you don't want to have it as much as you want all day, but it's something that you can have frequently, okay? Kind of in the middle. And then you have your whoa drinks, which is going to be those ones where you're like, okay, I recognize that this one probably isn't something I should have all the time. It shouldn't be a go-to. It should be almost thought of as like a once in a while thing, like a treat. Okay, that's going to be your whoa drink, the red. Okay, so if I were just to show you one of these, and we'll get into this, what those mean. So I just kind of want to get your first opinion. So I'm going to share one with you. Oh, this is probably a good one. So this is just a cup of coffee. Okay, Piffy made this. It's just poured right from the pot. What do you think this would be in terms of that go slow or whoa kind of drink? I heard whoa.
I'd say it's in the middle.
So a slow. You think it's which one? The red one. Oh, the whoa. Okay. Anybody else? Cup of coffee. Is it going to be something a go? That's okay. So I'm thinking, think of like a stoplight, 3 colors. A go drink is going to be one that you can have as much as you want all day. And a slow is one where it's kind of in the middle. You're like, I have it maybe every day, but it's not an all day thing. Frequency is a little bit less than go. And then whoa, the red is kind of those things where you're like, okay, it's not never, but it's like once in a while, like a treat thing. Like, you know, I had a hard week, I'm gonna have one of these.
Still
Or I'm
say
really
yellow.
craving this right now, I'm gonna have one of these. But it isn't like that all day.
Well, coffee does have multiple benefits for the human body, but not in abundance. Not too much, so like one a day.
Right. And for me, I would say if it's just coffee, ground from beans, instant coffee, I would say it's probably going to be a slow. And the reason I would say that is because I know that some obviously don't, but it has caffeine. We probably don't need to be having that much caffeine all day long. And I know a lot of people, they do drink coffee all day long. But caffeine is one of those stimulants for our heart that we really don't want to continually go at our hearts with caffeine. Yeah, over here.
And you don't want to work, have your machinery doing this.
Right. Now, there's another way to look at your drink too, and it's how much energy or calories does that drink have in it? So if you look at coffee, does anybody know just black coffee black?
Low calories. There's not very many calories in black coffee. The cream is where the calories come in.
So that's where I'm going with this. So this is probably only about 3 calories, 3 to 5 calories, right? This is a flavored coffee, but I don't believe it has, so it has like a hazelnut. I think that's the flavor, right? So I don't think though that this has any added flavors to it besides that hazelnut. It's not sweetened, is what I'm getting at. It doesn't have anything like a creamer added to it or pre-added. So just a cup of coffee.
I don't know about you, I prefer to have my own cream. That way you put what you want in there.
Right. Now, that 3 to 5 calories, which is basically the same as water, it's a little bit more energy there than water. It's not going to be a problem for people that are trying to watch calories, right? You're not going to overindulge if you have just coffee when it comes to calories. I said the caffeine is something to be concerned about for health because most coffee has that. You can buy decaf coffee, which again has the caffeine taken away or almost gone. So there's that to think about. And then what can you do with a cup of coffee? We already talked about it. You can add things to it, right? You can add cream, you can add sugar to it. And so when you have things you're adding to it, you're kind of taking that slow cup of coffee, which is like, again, that's okay. Have that, maybe you have a couple cups a day is kind of what I'm thinking for slow, the amount you might have. And then now you start adding, I don't know, 3 teaspoons of sugar or 1/4 cup cream to your coffee every time you have a cup. Maybe you buy one at a coffee place and they're adding whipped cream and they're adding chocolate to it and they're adding, you know, that's where it's going to quickly become kind of a whoa drink, right? So black coffee, as you mentioned, has some health benefits to it, right? In those, you were very on point, right? In those smallish amounts, right? You're not going to really get any big health boost from coffee. There are some studies that have said have this much a day, 2 cups a day, or no more than this, or 1 cup a day to get a health benefit. Okay.
But that's only black, and sugar, cream that has sugar as well, and
Right. So we'll just say plain coffee is where you get those benefits. Yeah, you also get them when you have the coffee with things added to it, but you're getting with that the added calories and the added fat. So that's one way to take a drink and turn it from one category of like a slow into a whoa. What if I showed you something like this? Is anyone even familiar with what this is? Just speaking of coffee. So this is one you would buy. In the store. Okay, so this is just called cold brew coffee. It's intended to be had at a cold temperature, where brewed coffee, hot brewed coffee is typically served in consumed hot. So this I bought just for the sake of wanting to try it. I've never tried cold brew coffee before. Now, the one thing I'll say that you don't necessarily have when you buy coffee from, say, Starbucks or Caribou, you don't always have nutrition information, meaning you don't know where it sits for calories, for fat, or anything else that's been added, right? You can probably ask when you buy a coffee like that, but when you get it on the cup, right, there's nothing there on the cup telling you what's inside, right? You just have to take it for what it is. When you buy something like this in the store, right, whichever drink it is, it could be the water you have, it could be the C4, it's going to have a nutrition label. And I would say if you're even curious about the drinks that you're having, you may have done this before. If you haven't, just like I recommend with food choices, just take a little bit of time once in a while to look at those things that are kind of in your, we'll say like your staples, the things that you have a lot, right? Because those are going to be the most impactful on your health, whether it's good, bad, or somewhere in the middle. Because if you're going to have something once in a while like a treat, in we'll say in moderation, it's not quite as important to know what's in that if it's something you're having once a month. I would say it's more important if you're going to take the time to look at the nutrition label, look at those things, drinks in this case, that you have every day, right? Because those are the things you're having in the highest amounts, and it'd be important, I would think, to know what's in them. So if you just had to guess, is this going to be, without even knowing what's on the label, would you put this as a go, slow, or whoa, just without knowing?
Well, I still put it in the slow. It's coffee.
So a slow, right? A lot of times, though, you can buy these drinks that are pre-flavored and pre-sweetened, and they might have added fat in there for flavor too. This surprisingly, I bought this. I did look at the label when I bought it, but I was just thinking, I assumed that this is probably pre-sweetened and it's got a lot of things added to it. In fact, it's only 20 calories a serving, and a serving is 12 ounces, so that's a pretty good amount. And in fact, there's only 4 servings in here. So 4 servings, so cut this down to 1 serving, 20 calories. Doesn't have any added sugars. The ingredients are very simple. Why I need glasses. There isn't much added to it, just trust me. I did look at this when I had better vision, better. I have cheaters up now, so they don't hear. This I would also agree, this is probably a slow. And I would have just assumed that this is like a gourmet or a designer coffee drink that you could buy just at the grocery store. So this, to me, would be a good choice for something that you can have in that slow category. Now, moving on to something like juice. Is there any juice drinkers in here? Anyone fan of juice? You probably already know, if you were to try to locate the best juice for you, the healthiest juice, what would you choose? If I just said to you, what's the healthiest juice?
Without added sugars.
Yeah.
Okay, so one without added sugars. And if you needed to figure out that, whether it's for you or for your kids or for your grandkids or family, how would you know if something has added sugars? The label, okay. Now, a lot of times juice, if it's trying to advertise this aspect of it, it has it right on the front, and I'm just going to show you, right? So the percent of actual juice in the container is typically shown right at the front if the number is really high. And companies typically, if they want you to know this is a healthier juice, they're going to tell you 100%. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a 90% on the label or an 85%. You're going to get 100% shown, or it's not going to be shown. And what does that mean if it's not shown? Well, typically, if it's not telling you what percent juice, this prominently on the label, because they chose to make this 100% claim here. You always have to go to that nutrition label. And if it's juice, it's going to tell you right above the nutrition facts, and it just says the same thing, contains 100% juice. Well, I heard someone say Sunny D. Someone said Sunny D. So I happened to be shopping today, and I guess did I not bring it in? Oh, I did bring it. Okay. So I happened to just see they had, as you can see, I'm a fan of the clearance section. I shop at Super One, Virginia, and I know Super One here has one of these too. So this is just a 99-cent bottle clearance Sunny D. Okay, so you look at Sunny D, and it has 100% here, but it doesn't say 100% juice. It says 100% vitamin C, But say I want to know how much juice is in there. Because if it isn't juice, what do you think it is? If it's not 100% juice, what makes up the other part to make it 100%?
Would be a mix of other kinds of.
Sugar water, right? It's typically going to be sugar water, right? So like when we make our Kool-Aid, you have the packet, you have water, packet, flavoring, and you add the sugar, right?
Yeah, I've seen things that have like other juices in there besides whatever, besides what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. So I said this was obviously 100%. It tells you here, and it also tells you where it should, right above the nutrition fact label. So I'm just going to ask Pippi to tell me what you see above the nutrition fact label.
5% juice.
Oh, 5%.
What?
So if you didn't know, Sunny D, just for example, has 5%. So can you imagine what percent of this bottle is 5%? It's like here. That means the rest of it, the 95% below where I just showed, that's just sugar water. That's essentially all it is. So you can see how different these are for just juice choices, drink choices, right? And the benefits to having juice compared to sugar water, does anyone have any idea what would it be? Just if you had to guess. Why drink 100% fruit juice? Why not just have Sunny D, which is 5% juice? And
Fruit juice has natural sugars. Fruit juice has a natural sugar in there. It's not a manufactured sugar, it just comes with. the
Right.
juice.
so that comes up a lot. Sugar, right? Sugar is going to be inside the juice of the 100% juice. It's going to be in there because naturally growing fruit it's sweet because it has naturally forming sugar inside it. Okay. This Sunny D has that little bit of natural juice, but mostly it's just added sugar. We can just imagine in the factory, it's just a machine and it's popping in crystallized sugar.
You don't know
Right.
how much is in there, how much of that sugar is in there, it says 95%, but.
Right. Now, just this might be shocking, but your body doesn't care if it's getting sugar from fruit, which is natural, or from the crystallized powdered form that we put inside Sunny D. Your body doesn't care. Your body doesn't say, "Oh, this is the good sugar because it's from fruit." The benefit to having 100% fruit juice is the things that come along with the juice. In the juice, besides that sweetness, that natural sugar, it's going to be vitamins and minerals, things that we don't get from our Sunny D naturally from the juice. Is you're going to get, again, the benefits to having the fruit is going to be what's inside the juice besides the natural sweetness. That's going to be labeled here on the bottom. For example, the vitamin C content here is of 100% fruit juice is 80% per serving, and it has potassium. Now, if you've ever looked at a nutrition label, they have 2 listed here. Some labels have 4, but they typically don't have more. So think of all the different vitamins and minerals that you can have from different food and drink sources. They don't have the room on here to tell you what percent of every single, So just trust me that you're going to get a lot of different vitamins and minerals from fruit juice, natural fruit juice that you're not going to get from here unless they're adding it in during the mixing of this. So you can actually isolate vitamin C and you can add it in, just like you can buy it in a pill at the grocery store or at the drugstore. You can buy vitamin C tablets, right? So they have found a way to get 100% vitamin C inside here, but it was something added after the fact. It didn't come from the actual juice. And is there anything else in here that it says it has? It doesn't have any potassium listed here. So it does have 100% fruit juice. So as you can see, just trying to figure out sometimes what the best thing for you regarding drinks is going to be a little bit convoluted. You have to do a little bit of homework. But the one thing I'll say is if it's juice you're looking at for yourself, again, for other family members, that nutrition label at the top of it, if it doesn't say it anywhere on the front, that nutrition label for juice is always going to tell you the percent right over where that nutrition facts label starts. And that's, again, 100% versus 5%. Now, if I look at like this is just a flavored water, a sparkling water that has some flavoring added. One of the things that you'll find if it's a 0 calorie, but yet it's sweet, is it's probably flavored, or the sweetness is coming from where? Where is this? How is it sweet if it's 0 calories?
Could be coming from saccharin or stevia or whatever.
So
You have to look.
an artificial sweet, right? So I heard saccharin, I heard stevia, aspartame. Has anyone heard any other ones? Splenda. So those are all called artificial sweeteners, aside from stevia, which is
Yeah.
stevia has a little bit of more of a claim to coming from a natural food source because it's coming from a leaf. It's an extract from a leaf. Does anyone have any idea how is Splenda made? Splenda is also called sucralose, if you've never heard that before. That's the same things, Splenda and sucralose. So if you are looking for Splenda on the label, they don't use Splenda on the ingredient list. They use the scientific word sucralose, just so you know. Those two things are the same. Do you have any idea how sucralose or Splenda, same thing, is made?
No idea.
And we typically don't know these things because why would we, right? We just believe that what the nutrition label is telling us is right and it needs to be accurate, but we don't always say, well, I want to know what. I gotta find out something I can read here. Okay, does anyone know what ascorbic acid is?
Vitamin C.
Yes. I didn't know if anyone would know that. But ascorbic acid sounds like something you wouldn't want to drink because it just has that. That's the scientific word or phrase for vitamin C. So that's the kind of thing you see in nutrition labels, and we just go, well, it has to have been approved to be safe for me to drink, so I'm going to drink it or eat it. So that's why I was saying about sucralose. It's an artificial sweetener that has been approved to be put in our food and our drinks. It actually starts with real sugar. So when they make sucralose, they start with real sugar, and then it's chemically modified, almost like in a lab setting, factory setting, and they change it just enough so your body doesn't know what it is anymore. So you can't absorb it as energy, as calories. So it tastes sweet, it retains the sweetness to your tongue and flavor, but your body can't utilize it for energy. So it just, so many people don't know that. And the thing about it is there's another way to make saccharin. Saccharin's different. It's just different. Stevia is different. Aspartame is different than all the others. They're made differently, but they have the same trait. Now, I don't have any specific evidence that I can share that say, here is the good one, here's the bad one. Stevia, I would say, because it comes from a natural source, is likely going to be the healthiest artificial sweetener for you, but guess what? Stevia costs, I don't know, many times more than aspartame or saccharin or Splenda, right?
You don't need a lot of stevia though if you put it in your coffee, because I mean, you get that packet, all you need about this much to get flavored.
Right.
I've tried it, it's like, wow, that's sweet, just
Right.
beautiful packet.
So, and I say that because if I tell you something is the healthiest option, once you look at prices and compare, it's likely going to get crossed off the list for most people. They're like, that's fine to tell me to go and buy only organic vegetables, but I'm priced out of buying what I need for my family. So I have to get some that aren't organic, or maybe try to find during the farmer's market season, maybe I go to the Hibbing farmer's market and I get vegetables that way when they're in season, or maybe I try to grow some. But typically we can't always buy the healthiest option because we're priced out of it. So I would say, if you are having a lot of drinks that are artificially sweetened, again, I can't tell you that with certainty that you are now at higher risk for this, or this. Just know that there are studies ongoing, because a lot of these don't even have 30 years of use yet in people. So they get approved. So I don't want to go too deep, but they get approved to be put in just like any ingredient we add to foods and drinks. They get approved through testing. But we typically don't have 30-year testing processes for all these ingredients, right? They do this little window where they say, we tested this, here's sucralose, here's aspartame, here's saccharin. And they get put into foods. We don't necessarily know yet. Has anyone heard anything good or bad about artificial sweeteners? Like, do you like them? Do you?
I've heard they cause cancer.
So,
That's what I've heard.
okay, yeah,
And brain problems.
okay.
You know,
Some people might even say they might have to use autism too, but that one I'm not sure.
Yes. So there's going to be a lot of stuff out there, and I can say that the study community, right? The researchers, there isn't like a consensus to say like we know with certainty that this artificial sweetener is causing this disease or condition. There's some speculation out there, and sometimes it's just rumors. So again, not to get too deep into this, my recommendation as a nutritionist is to have it in moderation, where I kind of put it in the yellow. I say, if your go-to drink when you're thirsty at any time of the day is a diet soda, artificial sweet, or is like this, a flavored water with an artificial sweetener, I'd say maybe mix it up a bit. So you don't have that as your only thing you're consuming all day. Maybe have maybe if coffee isn't your thing, maybe it's unsweetened iced tea, or maybe it's just water, unsweetened water, right? Not adding the flavor packet to that one glass, right? And maybe having this less often. Because again, I don't want to be what I would consider to be like a test subject to know what happens if you have this, because we don't have the evidence yet. And I say we as in like anyone who has, you know, looked at the research or been a part of studying the effects of, say, artificial sweeteners. We don't know yet if you have it for 30 years, what that could mean, okay? So I would rather not be the one to say, oh, I had it every day for 30 years all day long, and then now we found out this, this, and this. So I'd say just think about moderation. Can you think of any other go drinks besides I just threw out water? So just plain water, whether it's from the tap, filtered. Filtering just, again, takes out some of the things that take that tap water and maybe make it look or taste a little funny, and it hopefully takes those things out. So filtering from like a home filter or a tap filter doesn't do anything to add anything to it. It's really just taking away the things that probably you don't like about the original. But drinks of like this is just a plain bottle of water. So a bottle of water, there's probably other, I'm trying to think. A lot of times people ask me about well water, right? Is that safe? I grew up with well water, or I still drink well water. That's what I have. My parents, they have well water at their cabin, and they get their water tested, but it's up to the person that owns the well to have their water tested. So when it comes to is that safe or not, that comes down to how often you get your water tested, because that's coming again right from the groundwater, same place that bottled water comes from, right? You've seen maybe the signs at Buell saying best water in America, or you know, how good their water is. It's the water source does, yeah. So the water source does have an impact on health, right? So we hope that our city officials are doing the testing of our municipal water that comes into our homes, right? Apartments and our houses, that they're testing. I still filter because I don't like the taste of Virginia water. How about Hibbing water? Is there any opinions? What is Hibbing water like?
It tastes like bleach.
Bleach?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's sometimes stronger, other times.
Okay. And I know some people, they won't drink the water out of their taps because they just, for whatever reason, don't like it, don't trust it. So they get bottled water all the time.
Sometimes you can-
You like it?
you can take
Yeah,
by your-
it's a bridge on it. Oh,
Mhm.
it's just,
Mhm.
I love it.
So water, that water, any formula's waters where it hasn't been changed with added colors or flavors, I'd say that's your green. Any other drinks you would categorize as a green drink? It means you can have it all day long as much as you want. Assuming you don't have a food allergy. That's kind of it. Some people have, I talked about this a little earlier. I would say milk is probably another one in this case. Now, you might say, yeah, but milk has calories to it. Maybe we don't want to have that all day long. So if that's a concern, that might knock it down into that slow category, but milk, nutritionally based, is going to be considered a go drink. Have as much as you want. However, milk comes in a lot of different forms. Do you have
How much calories are in milk?
How many calories are in this? 80 per 1 cup. So you can imagine what 1 cup looks like, right? We usually don't have 1 cup at a time unless it's going into baking, or maybe it's over cereal, hot or cold. But a glass is going to be probably more like 160.
I guess
160
that's
calories
what
a
else
glass.
you have with that.
But you probably are very aware, pink means something unique. What does it pink mean?
Skim.
Yep, which is, what does skim mean?
Tasteless.
Zero fat.
It means, and it says it here above my finger, it's 0% fat. So when they bottle this milk, they have a huge vat. If you've never seen or heard this, they collect all the milk from the cows, and then that milk gets put into giant containers, vats. And then what they do is they make all of these containers, right, from that milk at the factory. They have to do certain things to make sure it's safe to drink, because direct from the cow may or may not be, depending. So they do some things to make sure it's safe. But to make pink milk, they actually have to remove all the fat. Do you have any idea how do they do that? Because if they got it from the cow and they have it in this big container, how in the heck are they going to get the fat removed from?
They milk the cow. What is it?
So think whether it's like that farmer that just has
Yeah.
a herd and he milks them by hand, or it's like a huge industrial farm and they have like automatic machines. They collect it all up and then they sell it. They sell it to, this is Walmart, right? So the farmer obviously isn't the one that's putting in these containers. They're selling it to a company to do that. So they have it in those big milk trucks and then they go to a factory. They have to get, though, pink milk made from that milk that they collected from the farm. So they sit it in these giant containers and they have these big paddles, like a boat paddle, and they go back and forth because if you let it sit long enough, the cream will just rise and it'll be only at the top. So the cream, if left for a long enough time, just sits there at the top of this giant vat. And what they have to do is they skim the top and collect up the fat. And then they put it somewhere because they use that cream for other things. But they have so many back and forths across the top of these giant vats until they have no fat left. And what's another color you've seen before besides pink? Yellow, right? What does yellow mean?
1%.
One. And then you probably seen any other colors?
Oh, milk is red.
Blue, and blue is 2%. And then the other color you see for traditional milk buying, you can get a lot of different forms of milk, but drinking milk, right, is going to be red. Is the other one. That's called whole milk. Does anyone have any guesses? Okay, 0%, yellow 1, blue 2, red. Any guesses? Why doesn't it say that percent 2? That's always kind of funny. Whole milk is basically they don't take the paddle back and forth to collect it all. The natural amount of fat in most cow's milk is about 3.5%. Between like 3.5, 3.75%. So they don't have 3% on red milk because it's actually higher than 3%. So the average is probably like 3.5%. That's what the amount of fat in red or whole milk is. So any guesses though? What is the green? This is probably pretty obvious. What color of milk that I just said the 4 options? What's the green version of milk that you want to have? Oh yeah, I'm holding on to 0%. Now that's not everyone's favorite, right? But this version is going to be considered the healthiest, and that's because again the fat's been removed, but you're getting all of the benefits of milk, of which there are a lot. So you've probably heard milk is good for your bones, and that's because it has vitamin D and it has calcium. Those things together help form and heal bones. But whether or not you buy the red whole milk at 3.5% fat or the pink, which is 0, you get the same amount of calcium, same amount of vitamin D, same amount of other minerals and vitamins. So there's not a difference. The only difference is the amount of fat that's in it. And you might be saying, well, but I like the way that tastes. And I'm like, yeah, I understand. I'm just saying that for nutrition wise, for health concerns, the pink and the yellow are thrown in here as the best. And then you have your 2%, it's kind of sitting here, 2% your slow, and then your woe is going to be your whole milk. However, if you have kids and they love milk, but they only want to have whole milk, it's actually recommended that you just have those kids, if they like whole milk and they will drink it, but they won't go any lower, they won't go for the blue or the yellow or pink, keep giving them that whole milk. Or if someone is pregnant, they say also have the whole milk because again, that's going to benefit the baby, that extra fat as the baby's growing. So besides that, the recommendations is to have the lowest amount of milk fat that you can enjoy. So is that pink? Is that blue? Is it yellow? Right? Because the benefits of milk are too great to just cut it out completely. So a lot of people say, I heard at milk, like I love my whole milk. And if you're telling me it's bad for me, then I'm going to cut milk out because I don't want any of the other versions. I would say then have whole because there's too many nutritional benefits here. It's just you're going to get less calories because the fat ultimately translates into more calories and then more fat in our bodies coming from animal sources. So that's your dairy and your meat. Those are considered sticky saturated fat. Have you ever heard of that before? Saturated fat. Those are the fats we find in our animal products. So dairy and our meats. Those they're sticky fats. So we usually don't want more sticky fats.
People do need fats in their diet though.
Mm-hmm.
Where
But
do you
there's-
start with the, without fat.
There's different, that's what I was saying. There's different kinds of fats. You have animal-based fats and plant-based. And the animal-based ones, they're stickier. So that means that they tend to hit each other in your blood and then they stick and they form clumps and then clumps can turn into clots, which we don't want, right? So we want less animal fat, less saturated fat. So, and these are like your milk substitutes, right? You've probably seen these before. Oat. This is almond milk. Does anybody like these or have these consistently, or someone in your home
I've
have
tried
a
almond
milk
milk.
alternative?
I tried almond milk and I don't know.
I went down my daughter went
Mm-hmm.
in the silk.
Yep.
So I was out of my house.
And this is oat milk. Now, I have to admit, I don't know how all these are made. I mean, you have the word almond in there. I assume it's coming from almonds. And this oat, I'm assuming it's made from oats, right? Like oatmeal. Okay. So sometimes I look and I say, okay, well, what's in here? Well, the ingredient list, again, if you don't know, this is just the same as food. If you don't know what's in the things that you're consuming, take a minute just to say, well, what's in here?
I'd rather eat the almonds than have milk.
Sure. But I'm also thinking of those people that can't have cow milk because it doesn't sit well with them. It makes them sick or ill or really it's uncomfortable. So they have to have something that's like milk if they want to continue to enjoy things like cereal, right? Hot or cold cereal,
There is a theory though
or just
that,
have it as a drink.
there's a theory though that anybody over a child's age shouldn't really be having milk anyway, cow's milk. Anyway, so I don't know how true that is.
I'm lactose, so I don't really drink. But
Right.
I can eat stuff with them.
Okay.
Right.
Now
don't know if
so sensitivities sometimes can be pretty extreme and then sometimes it's considered more mild. So you can enjoy things with milk in it, just don't have glass,
Yeah,
right?
like
Cow's
ice
milk.
cream.
You can also get milk that's pre-treated, right? Too. You can get. Do you happen to know the name? Does anyone know the name of lactate? Is what you add to milk if you want to make this cow's milk. If you want to take out the lactose, you can add tablets to it, and then it changes the lactose, so it won't make you sick. But there's also drink you can buy. I can't think of what it's called. There's a brand of milk that they do that for you, and it's coming from cow's milk, but they actually pre-treat it. So you can be the one to treat it yourself with tablets. Maybe there's even a liquid form of it, but basically it takes the lactose and it's still in there, but it changes it so it won't make you sick or you won't have the reaction to it. But there's also a kind of milk you can buy made from cow's milk that they, in the factory when they bottle it, they treat it for you.
Is it good for like diabetes?
So you're familiar with probably blood sugar testing, right? Just because that's the staple thing you need to do when you have diabetes, whether it's type 1 or type 2. There is sugar present, just like I said with fruit. There's natural sugars found in milk. Now, you don't really think of this as a sweet beverage, but all sugars, right, count as one part of what people will be thinking about when it comes to blood sugar. Carbohydrates is what you're trying to count, right? So things like breads, many breads aren't sweet, but they're definitely high in carbohydrates. Potatoes, same thing, very high in carbohydrates and can increase your blood sugar, but they're not sweet. It's because they have something called starch in it. So when it comes to watching blood sugars for diabetes, you have to watch for those carbohydrates more than just if it's sweet or not. right? So milk is going to definitely affect blood sugar. It's going to affect blood sugar less because there's less carbohydrates in milk than there would be in, say, this 100% fruit juice or this Sunny D. These two drinks are probably what you recommend to someone to say, you have low blood sugar, we need to get it up quick. That's what these things are going to do. So, right.
And I had somebody take a candy kiss it and eat right, raise up their blood sugar.
And
I had a friend who did that.
I'm very familiar. I have family members that are diabetic, and I've been there when they've had low blood sugar. And I'm jumping in with my training, and I say, okay, do you have juice? And then someone will find a juice. And this one time, somebody said, I have juice, and they took this out. And I remember that, and I went and bought one of these after this incident. And they said, here, quick, give them some juice. And I said, wait, let me see that. And they said, this is a juice that has artificial sweetener in it. So it's actually very, very low in carbs. So you could give this to that diabetic that has the low blood sugar situation, and it won't help them very much at all. It's almost no carbs. In fact, if I look here, there's only two grams of carbohydrates in this juice per serving. Two G's, two grams of carbohydrate. In here we have, in per serving, we have 16. So 16. I had to say, no, we need something else. So we ended up using candy, what we did. So we had them, they had some, it's like a chewable, like a chew candy. Because they said, how about these? They had like hard candies. They said, it's not going to hit the blood sugar fast enough. So someone who was like, I'm dizzy, I feel sick, and they needed their blood sugar up. So there's some form of candy that was, again, I don't want to get too far into that. Just know that there are some juices out there like this that, again, what percent juice? This is really interesting. I'll just have you read it. I could read it too. What percent juice is in this? 4. Now, isn't that interesting? This has more juice in it than this. This to me looks like the healthier juice, because most times you think of Sunny D, you just think kids want this, and you don't think it's usually as healthy. At least I don't. So I would have assumed that this had more real juice in it. No, it's got less juice than Sunny D. So that's why I say don't always make assumptions about the things you're drinking as far as, are they healthy? Are they not healthy? Use those nutrition labels to better sort of arm yourself with information and knowledge. This, however, is only, because it is artificially sweetened, it's only going to be 5 calories per serving. 5 compared to 60, right? That's a huge difference, because this has natural sugar, 5%, and it has that, when I say natural too, I mean from the 5% juice, but it also has natural sugar in the form of granulated sugar that they made Sunny D from. Now, this one obviously has to have some form of artificial sweetener. And this is what I say, I'm only doing this because you may have never done this. Say, I want to know, what artificial sweetener am I giving my kids, right? Chris talked about this and said, maybe don't have them have it all day as much as they want. So what is the artificial sweetener in here? And to be honest, I was trying to remember what it was, and now I have to look it up. Oh, here we go. Sucralose. So I talked about what that is, right? Sucralose, that's Splenda. That's the artificial sweetener that's sweetening this juice. But it's only 4% actual, in this case, grapefruit juice. And the rest of it is artificial sugar water. So if you can imagine 4%, the rest of it is just sucralose water, right? And it probably has some form of flavoring in here too. I said that ascorbic acid thing, that's in here too. So they did add some vitamin C to it. But they've added some colors and some other things. And so basically you're getting, essentially you're just getting, right, sucralose water in that container.
I'd rather get 100% grapefruit juice. I can stick a little sugar in on my own. If I want sugar in it, if it's a little too sour,
Right.
get a little.
And so that's a good point. I would recommend that people just add, if they want to sweeten up their drink, just use some actual sugar. Now, the one thing I'll say is, if you're trying to limit the amount of sugar for yourself for calories, does anyone have any idea? I have to probably look this up, or maybe you could too, Pippi. Could you look up how many calories are in 1 teaspoon of sugar.
I'll say 150.
It's less than that. It's like, I'm gonna say it's like 25, 30. I haven't done this lookup for a while.
Just throwing guesses up there.
16 in a teaspoon, right?
Mhm.
And there's 3, everyone knows what a teaspoon looks like?
Oh,
No?
yeah.
It's, like, think of like a cereal spoon, it's less than a cereal spoon, it's like less than half of that. How about in a tablespoon? Which is gonna be 16 times 3, by the way, because it's 3 teaspoons to 1 tablespoon.
Yeah.
I just wanna see if it actually gives the 3 times 16 is the answer. For a tablespoon of
48.
48. So let's just, for the sake of math, let's round up to 50. So every time you have a tablespoon of sugar added to something you're drinking, and I'm just going to say coffee's a good example. A lot of people, whether it's them or someone in their, work or life situation, is a coffee drinker and they add sugar, actual sugar. If you want to know how much sugar then you're going to consume in a year, let's just say, does anyone know anyone in their life that's like coffee all day kind of person? I would say, so I'm not getting internet. I'm going to ask you to look this up, or maybe no. What am I saying? I can just do the math. I'm just going to use a calculator. So 50 calories per tablespoon. I'm going to say maybe to a mug of coffee, you add 2 tablespoons. Okay, maybe that seems like a lot because I don't add sugar to mine, but let's just say, for example, you really like sweet coffee, so you added 2 tablespoons to every mug of coffee you have. And now how many mugs might you have in a day if coffee is your go-to drink? I heard, how many did you guess? Like 3, 4, maybe even 5. I'll just go right in the middle and say 4. Maybe you had 4 mugs of coffee in a day, and you added 2 tablespoons of sugar to every mug that you drank. Okay, so now you have 400 calories a day coming just from the sugar that you add to your coffee. Now take the 400 and multiply that by, if this is an everyday thing, you have to do it by 365. Okay, now we're almost at 150,000 calories a year just from the added sugar to your coffee. And to a lot of people, you don't notice that every day. You don't notice like, oh, well, that's really, a problem for me that I'm putting on, say, weight, or I'm, some of the other effects of sugar. But now maybe you can do this for me, Pippi, if I can ask you one more time.
Mhm.
How many calories are in a pound of body weight?
2,000 something?
Your guess is 2,000 something? Okay. I probably shared it in this
Or in a
before.
pound of what?
Of body weight.
Okay.
Calories in 1 pound of body weight.
3,500.
3,500. Okay, so that means if you wanted to lose, well, let's first do the math on 150,000 calories a year from sugar. 150 about divided by 3,500. This is how many pounds of weight you'll have if you do that scenario of the sugar added to the coffee. That's 43 pounds over a year. So if you just add the 2 tablespoons every time you have your mug of coffee, that's 43 pounds of body weight just in sugar from the coffee that you drink every day. So that doesn't even count anything you've eaten, right?
Wow.
Right? We all know that we need energy every day, a certain amount, just to maintain exactly where our weight is here. And if you have less than that amount, you lose weight over time. And if you have more than that amount your body needs, you hold on to it.
So this is saying to multiply your current weight by 15. And that's how you'll get to your number of calories that you need to make. Is that accurate?
No, because it always depends on all the factors of who you are and what you're doing.
Okay.
So for example, if you are very sedentary, meaning you don't do much, you need a lot more activity to lose weight. Meaning like if you're overindulging on foods and calories, if you are sedentary, that weight will start to add up faster because you're sedentary than if you're active. Because every time you move your body, you're using calories. So the less you're doing that and still consuming calories, energy, the weight is going to go up more. And you're going to need less energy So that's what I mean, Pippies. If you're sedentary, you need a lot less energy to maintain your weight.
Mhm.
It's if you're very active. Let's say you have a job where you stand on your feet all day. Does anybody have a job like that where they're on their feet most of the day? I don't. But if your job was to stand all day, you're going to burn way more calories than someone that gets to is sitting most of the day. Meaning, if you're standing, you need more calories now to maintain your weight because you're always, whether it's standing, moving, walking. Some people have a job where they're hauling things all day. So not only are they standing, but they're also going up ladders, down ladders. They're holding things that are heavy and they're moving things that are heavy. Those people need even more calories to maintain their body. Pro athletes.
It's a new cigarette. Didn't know.
What's that?
They said something like that. That's a new cigarette sitting down.
Say that one more time. Sorry.
I said, ain't there? People say that that's like the new cigarette.
Oh, the new.
Sitting down.
Oh, yeah. That I heard cigarette, but I was putting that together. So it's like the new smoking.
Right.
Yes, I've heard that too, and it kind of boils down to the less you move, it's worse for you than taking up the habit of smoking, but moving around, right? Now, there's probably a lot of research that went into boiling it down to that phrase. I'm of the belief that's true, but I've never been a smoker, so I don't know what the effects of those things are other than what I've heard and read. So, if that makes sense to you, or if at least in part you believe that moving less is more harmful to you than taking up a habit like smoking, right? If that helps you move more, I mean, that's part of what I'm usually trying to nudge myself to do. So I also at the same time would encourage other people to be moving more too. So if you find yourself, maybe it's not necessarily everyone, but maybe if you're concerned about your weight and you're like, I would like to lose a little bit of weight because I'm having a difficult time doing activities I could do before. And part of that might be because you have more weight than you had when you remembered being able to do these things without struggling, is moving more. So not everybody wants to necessarily cut down on their food and drink because that's harder for them to do than maybe taking a walk every day or finding a way to move during the day if you have a job where you're sitting. Now, I'm just thinking in my mind, in my office, I see a person who has a standing desk. Have you ever seen these before? So she stands all day. I wish I had the ambition to do that, but for some reason, I have the even ability probably to ask, can I get a standing desk? And I never have.
That's all that helps either if you're standing all day. I think that's probably hard too.
So it's a person who works at a desk job, but instead of sitting like, at most desk jobs, they're standing.
And some people have these perching chairs for their other things, so it's not like a full set, but for like where you can perch on it for every once in a while to get off your feet periodically, but you're not totally sitting.
And how does this relate? So I don't want to get too tangent.
Yeah, we're talking.
How does this relate? How does this relate to what we're drinking, right? So not everybody necessarily wants to cut back on the things that are considered those reds or even those, the woes or the slows. They're like, I'm still going to indulge on those things, but I don't want to be where I am weight-wise, for example, or I want to have a health condition like diabetes, right? I want to have my diabetes better under control, and I'm having a hard time. Well, movement doesn't necessarily help with that, but for weight, it definitely would. If what you're having a harder time making the changes is to having less food or drink that is affecting that, health concern you have. And maybe moving is easier, or maybe it's finding somewhere in the middle, right? So Sunny D essentially is mostly sugar water, and that's your go-to drink, or it's soda or another high sugary drink.
Well, heck, that might get you moving. So high in sugar, you're probably.
Sure. But, just thinking about this in terms of like a health condition like weight, you want to lose weight, maybe that's harder for you than moving more. And for your body, it's a trade-off that you get to choose, or you have some control over. If you want to move more, but still continue to have as much Sunny D as you have, or put as much sugar in your coffee as you like, then as a nutritionist, I say that works. if that works for you. So I don't want to ever be the person that's delivering the message of, you know what you need to do, cut out that favorite thing you like, the thing you eat, the thing you drink, cut it out completely because that's the healthiest choice. Most people will say, they'll say, I'd have to bleep it out.
Well, then
If
there's
that's what,
the-
if that's,
the sugar high too. How does that work? People get the sugar high, that year that they get this real crash later, they're all up and then it's like, they're all down. I mean, is there any truth to that? Is that?
well, sugar increases the blood sugar in your blood, right? Your blood, right? The sugar goes up, and higher blood sugar has an effect on your brain. It does give you a little bit more because it's energy. It's like, think about putting, most of us have either built a fire or been with someone who's building a fire. If you're throwing all the wood on the fire, what happens? It's a huge, it's a huge fire. Like a lot of heat has to come out. So if you're putting a lot of sugar into your body, all quickly, at a high rate, yes, that's going to somewhat turn into a little bit extra. It's extra energy, more energy than you need. So you're going to feel that little bit like, you've seen the kids on a sugar,
Mhm.
I don't know, rush. I have though seen some studies that somewhat debunk that sugar causes hyperactivity, right? This link to say sugar, if my kid sugar, to be honest, I can't say. Does anyone else have an opinion on sugar causing hyperactivity? Is that something you've heard? Do you know more about that than I do, maybe? Because I've heard that often. I just don't know if that's
More often than not, ADHD is caused by sugar. It's
Yeah.
hereditary.
and therefore then would not be because of how much sugar. And hyperactivity doesn't always necessarily lead to a diagnosis of ADHD.
It's just the chemicals being produced in your brain often.
So when it comes to like certain, here's the official understood statement. I don't know that there is one to say like sugar equals this result when it comes to a high or that hyperactivity. It's just like a common thing I've heard many times, right? Sugar causes this in kids. But I've actually read some things that say that's not the case. That maybe it can be a factor, but it isn't like a cause and effect kind of situation. Okay, so I wanted us to try something today that I picked up at the store, and it's 100% fruit juice, and it's it's peach mango juice. Now the reason I picked this,
I like that.
So the reason why I picked peach mango though is specifically because when I bought this, I actually made the assumption that means it's 100% peach and mango juice. But any guesses? Like what? It's 100% juice in here, but what juice? The juice from what fruit is in here the most?
Apple.
It's apple, and I don't know the percentages, but it even says, and I had to look at it after I bought it. It says peach mango as a flavor, but it's called peach mango flavored apple juice. So they basically start with apple juice and they put in flavoring to make it taste like peach and mango. And why am I showing this to you, or why am I asking you to try this? Or I just thought it was interesting to try it, but it's 100% fruit juice. So not necessarily for health reasons, but there's something about the labels that has information that we don't always use. So maybe that doesn't matter to you or your kids. They just like the flavor of it. But essentially, you might be thinking what you're buying is peach and mango juice, a mixture of those two juices. You're buying apple juice that they have a little bit of stuff in there to make it taste like peach or mango. Right? Maybe that doesn't matter to you. I'm just saying because that's one of the things that is a part of nutrition labeling. It's just a fact of labeling food and drinks is there's a lot of things that can be done to, I don't know, would you call it fooling you? What would you say? Would you say that the way this is presented is honest? I don't know. Maybe that's up to you to interpret. But I say, look at nutrition labels, look at food labels. Because a lot of times there's things that are legal to do that we maybe wouldn't necessarily consider to be, I don't know.
I guess it's a
Transparent.
buyer beware there because of, if you just look at it, you don't read it totally, it could be deceptive, but they haven't been deceptive.
Right.
And it said it's flavored, you're not reading the flavors, and it's like.
Mhm. Same with the ingredients, which is why I say if you have a lot of,
Unless you don't like the flavors of peach juice.
right. So, but it is essentially apple juice that they have modified with flavors. Now I will look at it though. I'll say it says there is so this is interesting. So does anyone know that the ingredient list tells you what's the most and the highest amount at the top down to the bottom of the ingredient list, which is the smallest amount that what's inside, okay? So the very thing at the top is obviously apple juice. Actually, the first ingredient is filtered water, which is interesting because if it's 100% fruit juice, how can water be the first ingredient? Right. So they start. This is how it works. They start with filtered water, and then they put in apple juice concentrate. So can you imagine what does that probably look like? Apple juice concentrate's not going to be apples squished, collected juice, put it in here. No, it's that gets done, and then somehow it gets dehydrated down into probably like a powder form. So you have a scoop of apple juice concentrate that goes into this jug when they put in the filtered water. So can you imagine what happens in the factory? It comes by, filtered water, and then they probably have to stop somewhere because they're going to add a little bit more to it. Then they put in their scoop of apple juice concentrate. And the second ingredient is pear juice concentrate. Pear juice, pear juice isn't even on this label anyway. And so again, I'm bringing this up intentionally just to tell you that you're not always getting what the label is telling you if that is of concern to you. So that's just in almost like a not that serious way, but there's a lot of things that could be more of concern to you that you'd be like, I want to know actually what I'm putting in my body or I'm giving to my family.
Well, yeah, if you're allergic to pears, but I want that.
Yeah, and I don't even know if that's a thing, right? I don't know. Maybe because I've never heard of a pear allergy before, but it could be.
Yeah, fine, but
And as a parent or for yourself, you'd say, well, I need to know if there's pear juice in here. It doesn't say it anywhere. You would not know. It says pear, mango, apple, but it doesn't say pear anywhere. So if you want to actually say, well, how far down is peach juice? It's it's almost the last thing. Peach juice and mango puree are almost the last ingredient.
I've never heard of anybody with a pear allergy either, but you never know. There are a lot of people in the world.
Yeah. Oh, it sure could be. And I'm definitely not an expert on food allergies. I hear of new ones all the time that I've never heard of before. There's like a common set of food allergies. You probably have heard of some of these things before, right? You're gonna have your dairy, and you're gonna have your seafood and your tree nuts. Does anyone? What are some other ones? Oh, I guess.
There's always the peanuts.
So,
There's always
Pippi, do you want to
peanuts.
try some
Sure.
of this juice? Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Just gonna try to do this spilling. Would you like to try some of this?
I have no allergies to
Okay.
fruits.
Yep.
I'm good.
Yep.
And I'm glad of it. I like it sometimes. I don't eat lots, but I like
How about you?
I
it.
gotta put some on down there and see.
And I'm gonna have one too. So now that I've told you this, do you actually taste peach? Do you taste mango? Do you taste apple juice? Do you taste pear juice? Because I told you, right? It's it's apple juice concentrate is the highest fruit. Then it's pear, and then down the list, then you get peach and mangoes at the very bottom. Now I probably think I'm getting a lot of apple.
Yeah, it smells like mango.
Yeah,
But it doesn't taste it.
right.
I don't know, apple and pear. I'll take a lot of mango.
Right. And I don't know. It tastes like mostly apple juice to me.
I agree, it's mostly apple juice too.
And again, I wanted to kind of do this. Oh, does anybody want more? By the way, I have plenty here too. Anybody? So this was a big hit with, I just did a lesson with kids this past week. And I was trying to, it's a tough lesson to teach like a third grade class to say, you know, does that make sense to you? And a lot of them are like, I don't understand. If it says peach and mango, how is it not peach and mango? I said, well, that's how nutrition labels work. And a lot of times even we as adults don't necessarily know like how is that even possible that they're telling you this is peach mango 100% fruit juice. It's prominently displayed here on the front and the back. How is it not mostly peach and mango juice in it? So that's one of those things that hopefully a takeaway from today is you have labels that are allowed to do certain things, right? The pictures that are on there there's not a picture of, is that supposed to be a peach? What is that supposed to, or is that?
The mango.
Oh, it is a mango. I didn't even realize. I was thinking the mangoes I usually buy are this red. They're green. Yeah, they're mostly green. So, but even in the pictures chosen to represent this when you buy it are the same as the two words that are the biggest, size font.
I don't know if I would recognize mango anyway, without eating mango.
Okay. But again, this is just a part of nutrition label awareness that I ask people to take the time to look at, because a lot of times we don't look at nutrition labels until we have to, right? When we are told, well, you have been diagnosed with a condition. Maybe it's diabetes, maybe it's heart disease, maybe it's a food allergy. Like you didn't know you were allergic to this thing till you had it, or again, oftentimes children have a reaction, and then you have to figure out what caused them to have this terrible reaction. Or, maybe there's something that you're getting sick from, and you're like, I don't know what I'm getting sick from. I'm having something I'm eating or drinking, I think is making me sick. So that's when many of us start to look at our nutrition labels or labels in general at all, is when we have to. And I would be more of the, coming from my background is more encouraging people to look at labels, look at the products that you're buying to say, well, what is it about this product that you think kind of fits your need right now? Yeah, most of us go flavor, what we like to eat or drink. Yeah, that's why we buy it. Or it's price. And then usually it's the nutritional content or that ingredient list or whatever it is about the product labeling. It's way down the list. And I usually say when it comes to, like I said, our drinks, we sort of look at this, I believe, differently than food, right? When you start to think about like, well, what is it that is going to affect me most when it comes to diabetes?
So,
Do you mostly like when, if I may ask, so did you receive training from a doctor or anyone when you were told that you're diabetic, that here's what you need to do? Did you actually get someone helping you from a doctor?
from my primary, she
Mm-hmm.
She knows all about it. She tells me what to do and prescribes what I need.
Mm-hmm. And I'm hopeful, or hopefully, the information you're getting in other people when they have conditions that have the food that they're consuming and the drinks, that they say, don't forget about the things you're drinking and then what that does too. Because the food oftentimes is on those food lists we get. Watch out for this food, watch out for this additive, but maybe don't be so concerned about what you're drinking,
It's getting worse. I'm not even drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, but still.
Yeah.
A1C is 14. I gotta take insulin.
Right.
It's like I've really been doing this eating, but I guess I really haven't been paying close attention to what I'm eating. That makes a big difference.
And for the most part, what you can drink goes down easier, quicker than what when it comes to what's in that, right, we drink much faster than we eat. When we eat, we have to actually, usually we cut something into a bite. Or we, again, look how easy it is to have 60 calories times however many servings we have in here. So again, a serving is only 8 ounces. That's like a glass like this. So if you're really thirsty, it's easy to have half of this, probably. If you're really thirsty, you can have half of this. So you, in probably about 60 seconds time, you could have 400 calories.
Yeah.
You can't really do that as easy when you're eating food because you usually have to do something. You have to, maybe you're making it. If you're not making it, you at least have to open something up, get yourself a bite, chew the bite, swallow the bite, and then how many bites you're going to have from something that might be the same. What I'm saying is obviously you can have a lot more of a drink that's in that red category, much easier than you can have food in that time frame. So that's where I'm trying to put the spotlight on what we're drinking, and just again, kind of taking a step back a little bit from what we're drinking and saying, kind of where do we put this for yourself? Where would you put this? Would you call it a go? Have as much as you want, healthiest drink, have it all the time? Is it in the middle, that yellow, that slow, which is, it's got some good things, some not so good things, somewhere in the middle? Or is it that whoa, which is like, okay, this isn't really the best choice. Even if I like it, maybe I won't have that as my go-to drink whenever. All the
know
time.
if you're watching TV, you don't sit that next to your bed, your chair or your couch when you're watching TV, you're just doing this all the time.
Right. And the other thing when it comes to what we drink, that's kind of like my final kind of touching point, is like our teeth, our dental care. A lot of times we don't think about over time what things like coffee, soda, even juice does to our teeth over time. So we probably have over the years heard, brush your teeth after every meal. Well, very few people brush their teeth after every meal because it's inconvenient. We eat our meals wherever we're eating. We don't have this ready to go. So maybe it's in the morning. Maybe it's in the morning and it's at night, or it's only at night, whatever. So I say let's also be thinking about the effects over time from those staple drinks. And you might not think of it, but coffee does more than just stain teeth. It actually is just like any other acidic drink, can wear the enamel down on your teeth over time. So the more coffee is a staple for you, this could be one of the things that causes your teeth to go bad sooner, rather than if you were just to have something that isn't acidic. So obviously we know like juices and things that have that citric acid in it. So that could be like even there was it called C4 that she had? Those things, right? Oh, it was like an energy drink, like a sports drink. I'd never heard of it. Oh, C4 is like an explosive, right? I don't think, is that what it was called? C4? Or am I wrong? It was a C4. I didn't think about it though until you made kind of had a comment. Yeah, it's intentional then, I guess. They're probably trying to give you this like monster rockstar. It's trying to give you some kind of impression like you're gonna get a burst of flavor, explosive flavor. Anyways, so, and this is something I'll just give you. This is kind of like a takeaway when it comes to your teeth, right? One thing that I do is I never used to do this before. Like I feel like I always have good dental habits between the morning and the evening. Or I mean, that's when I focus on my dental care is I'm brushing in the morning, brushing at night. But in between, there's hours and hours that go by that whatever you've eaten and had to drink, it just sits on your teeth. So this is something that I've done for probably, I'll say 5 years. I have water with me. If I'm going to have something to eat or a drink like a juice or a coffee, I'll have that. And when I'm finished with whatever it is, right? I know some of us sip for a long time and it's a slow thing. Every once in a while, I take a swish of water and I intentionally kind of just let it move around my mouth for a while and then I swallow. And that's specifically to kind of rinse my teeth. And this is probably not that uncommon for people that have been told this by a dentist or something, but I just remember at some point I had heard someone else did this and I said, oh, that's kind of smart. So I always have water with me, but sometimes I have things that aren't water. Sometimes I have food things that can leave, things that are teeth behind. It's just using water. And when you don't intend to brush, like when you're at work, when you're away from home, right? Is just to use water if you happen to have it with, which most people do these days. It seems they have some form of water near them at all times. Is just to swish when you're finished eating something or you've had a drink like a cup of coffee or a glass of juice or even milk. It's just to do a quick rinse. And so, and the reason why I started this habit was because I have a friend who has really bad teeth. And he said, you know what, I wish I would have taken care of my teeth. And it was like a sad lesson to learn from a friend. But he said, I have a hard time chewing. I can't, but things I used to love, I can't have anymore. And he has dentures that like half upper and full lower. And anyways, so I don't want to get into so much of that, but it was one of those things where he said, I wish I had taken better care of my teeth. I can't undo the things that I've done or not done. So it's probably something that all of us in our lives have done, is to take an example from someone we know that says, do this, don't do this, right? And sometimes we listen and sometimes we don't. And that's just one of those things that I'll say when it comes to rethinking your drink, is just to be mindful too of what the drinks you're having are doing to your teeth, because you want your teeth as long as you can have your teeth.
I find myself doing that when I go to my water fountain.
Mhm.
Take a sip of water and switch it around. But if
Yeah.
you had like a soda or something, I found myself doing that too.
We're at time. We didn't cook today. Did you know that we didn't cook?
Good.
I'm hoping that maybe Pippi, if you know, is this temporary, this kind of situation with all the equipment and stuff?
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay. I know this is part of what was happening last month too. They had some stuff stacked in here and they had to
Yeah,
move it out and stuff, but
yeah, hopefully this will be done soon.
yeah. And the main reason we didn't cook, if you didn't hear, is because I didn't have, thank you. Is I didn't have the right equipment to cook it. I needed something to bake in the oven because we were gonna do enchiladas.
Yeah.
And so, but thank you for coming. Make sure you do the thing to sign out.
Yeah.
Are we offline? Pippi?